Chapter 803. Inside Divine Valley, the blood of the ancient kings splashed outwards. Miserable cries sounded everywhere. Everything that came into contact with the blood evaporated. This damaged body possessed a terrifying demonic nature. Every drop of blood seemed to possess a type of undying power that could destroy everything in its path. This was precisely a saint. Their bodies contained a sea of spiritual essence, a random bit of flesh enough to kill a Holy Lord-level figure. It was terrifying beyond compare. Zhang Lin's origin heavenly Dao technique was unmatched. It broke apart the body of a saint like cutting through a rock, decisive and forceful, clean and efficient. This was a terrifying scene. All of the ancient creatures were stunned. At this moment, even the head of the ancient king was blasted into mush by the human race's holy body. For them, this was shocking and terrifying, unimaginable. Since the ancient times, this was the first time a human dared to invade, moreover so powerfully. Even the ancient king was smashed to pieces, making many ancient creatures shiver in fear. Chi. In the void, within that shattered flesh, a streak of resplendent light erupted. A dazzling rainbow radiance rushed out from the crushed flesh. I knew you would have this move. Yi Fan inwardly mocked. He had previously fought a great battle against Zi Tiandu, so he knew that this race had a strange ancient technique. Why did this race name their residence Divine Valley? It wasn't without reason. What they mainly cultivated was the divine spirit. The flesh was just a relay station. Divine Valley ultimately cultivated the primordial spirit, refining one's own divine spirit. When one reached the highest cultivation realm, they would abandon the flesh. As a powerful ancient king, his cultivation definitely reached a horrifying height. His primordial spirit was powerful beyond imagination, completely able to abandon the flesh shell. Yi Fan had his own plans, long knowing all of this. He naturally didn't feel the slightest bit of fear as he rushed forward. Ignorant human in front of a divine spirit. So what if you have the sturdiest sacred shell? To me it's just a body, just a relay station, just a place to stop for a short while. Now I'll take it and use it for me. An expanse of blazing light appeared. A brand new archaic ancestral king stood in the void, rushing out from the crushed flesh and throwing himself forward. He looked like he was cast from light, impossible to look straight at. The entire world rumbled. All sorts of heavenly Dao patterns appeared. What undying, what eternal, what ancient, all seemed like they were about to be destroyed. At this moment, even Zhang Lin's eyes shone with a strange light. He furrowed his brows. If he wasn't careful, he would most likely suffer a great loss. This was the most powerful forbidden technique of the Valley of Divinity. It was as if a god had descended to the mortal world, and it specialized in destroying the primordial spirit and seizing the human body. It was a terrifying secret technique that destroyed one's foundation. Buzz. Yi Fan spread open his arms and took the initiative to welcome it. It was as if he was opening the door for a thief. He didn't resist at all, and allowed the immortal spirit light to fly over. What? He dares to be so arrogant. Is he courting death? Even if it's a sacred shell, so what? It's equivalent to a relay station for our clan's ancestral king. Would he dare to open the door and face the attack? Many ancient creatures laughed coldly. Just now, they suffered greatly, and now, they finally saw a scene where the battle situation was going to be reversed. However, the archaic ancestral king was extraordinary after all. When he saw this scene, he realized that things weren't looking good and wanted to retreat, withdrawing his attack. However, everything was already too late. Yi Fan's body was like a bottomless pit. This was especially true for the area where his immortal platform was. It was incomparably deep and had turned into an abyss, swallowing the ancestral king's primordial spirit. Oh no! He screamed in fear as if he had discovered the most terrifying thing. He felt as if he was facing the ancient emperor of the archaic era, and his guts were about to rupture. He had only experienced such a feeling once in his life, and that was during the last phase of the archaic era. When he went to seek an audience with the Battle Saint Emperor, he felt a supreme heavenly might and couldn't help but sink into it. He knelt there, not daring to move at all. And now, when he entered the abyss, he had the same experience. He screamed in fear and finally understood what had happened. He must have rushed into the weapon of the ancient emperor. Or to be more precise, Entering the supreme emperor weapon of the great human emperor was like a moth flying into a flame, courting death. Evidently, the saint emperor of the human race had dug a trap and was waiting for him to use this ancient technique to seize his Tao body. This was a fatal blow. Ah! A final miserable scream rang out. The center of Yi Fan's brows flashed with a black light as everything returned to normal. Not even a single ripple could be seen. Everyone was dumbfounded. The people from the Valley of Divinities felt their guts shattering. This was the foundation of their sect, a transcendent divine art. Yet it was disintegrated. This was a primordial ancestral king. Yet he was silently devoured by someone, turning into dust, no longer existing. There wasn't even a splash of water. The heaven-devouring devil jar was the weapon of the ancient emperor. Let alone an ancestral king. It could even devour the sun, moon, and stars. Rushing in was naturally a path of death. Roar! At the side, an even more powerful primordial ancestral king roared. Surging devilish chi gushed up, blotting out the moon and stars in the sky. He stomped on the ground with a single step and rushed over. His entire body shone with light as devilish chi towered up into the sky. In his eyes, mountains and rivers collapsed. The sun and moon sank, appearing incomparably terrifying. These were traces of the great Tao. He used supreme magical force to slash at Yi Fan's primordial spirit, wanting to split open his immortal platform. Ding! Zhang Lin moved. With a light flick of his finger, countless heavenly origin runes appeared in all directions, turning the entire Valley of Divinities into a sacrificial altar. Divine light shone like flames. They were going to sacrifice all the living beings in the valley as a living sacrifice. At the same time, Zhang Lin used the supreme forbidden origin formation to block the ancient king. Then he calmly rushed over. The ancient king's eyes flickered, filled with the vicissitudes of time. The power of reincarnation blasted out as he roared. Tribulation Tao Samsara. This involved the Tao of tribulation and Tao. The two alternated, turning into a cycle of reincarnation, destroying the restraints of space and severing the karma of time. It contained boundless divine might. Facing this divine law, the fifth-generation Yuan Taoist master displayed a cultivation base that could look down on the world. Genesis runes covered his body, fusing with heaven and earth. His feet stepped on the boundless earth, and his hands held up the sky. His entire body glowed, like an eternal god. Heavenly essence and earthly chi rushed over from all directions, and the great Tao imprints turned into divine rivers that interweaved in the void. 10,000 mountains moved, countless earth veins revived, the sky hummed, and mysterious light poured down. All of these were used by the Yuan Taoist master alone. Every move he made represented the will of heaven and earth. Boom! He gently stretched out his hand and pressed forward. It was as if this world was collapsing, and the ancient king was instantly pressed down, coughing out large mouthfuls of blood as his bones shattered. The beginning of the Tao, the end of the origin. Genesis techniques were also a type of Tao. When cultivated to the extreme, heaven and man would become one, wielding the heavenly Tao, omnipotent. This ancient king was emaciated and incomparably powerful. But at this moment, he was coughing out large mouthfuls of blood, suffering from great Tao injuries. Myriad things floated in his eyes, and after that, everything collapsed. He became even more terrifying. Yi Fan was about to use the sky-devouring evil jar on the spot, but was stopped by Zhang Lin, who warned him in secret. Make people think that you have come under the decree of great Emperor Wushi to suppress the Valley of Divinity and intimidate the myriad races. Don't use the sky-devouring evil jar recklessly, or else it will be difficult to erase great Emperor Ruthless' aura. Kill. At this moment, there was no need for superfluous words. He could only use his life to compose a war song and fight to the end. There was a broken bell above Yi Fan's head, and he held the black spear in his hand. He went on a killing spree in the Valley of Divinity, as if he was invincible. The spear swept across a large area. Black light flashed, and 6 or 7 blood-stained heads flew up. Their faces were filled with unwillingness and fear, and the headless corpses fell into pools of blood. Yi Fan slaughtered in all directions. The spear struck out as if it was cutting grass. Ancient creatures were sliced at the waist one after another. Blood dyed the ground red, and corpses covered the road ahead. Wherever he went, it was difficult for anyone to stand up to him. He fought in all directions alone. Blood surged, forming small rivers. There were corpses everywhere beneath his feet. Meanwhile, those death gods were also extremely terrifying. The main reason was because their flesh was too sturdy, not any weaker than a divine shell. It was because they were the undying heavenly emperor's former subordinates, a group of divine generals. Even after endless years had passed, they were still unmatched. All types of weapons and ancient treasures struck over. When they landed on their bodies, it was difficult for them to leave behind even a scratch. They were terrifying beyond compare. They were like a steel flood that couldn't be stopped at all. A single person was enough to stop a magnificent army, sweeping through everything in their path. Since the ancient times, the archaic king race had always been high up above, overlooking the world. When had they ever been attacked like this before? Now, they fought until the sun and moon lost their radiance. Ghosts wept and deities howled. And the Valley of Divinity almost became a ghost valley. There were corpses everywhere, and a foul wind and rain of blood were endless. This was the first time the human race stepped into this place. This was a heaven-shocking change. On the other side, Zhang Lin released a long roar. The proud blood was still present, and the battle was boiling. He forcefully suppressed the archaic ancestral king, and was about to kill him. This ancestral king displayed his most powerful attack. 49 pairs of divine wings moved, and the sonorous sounds of the great Tao rang out unendingly. An undying deity appeared behind him. Dazzling light surged, and divine rings appeared one after another, revolving around him. The divine wings flapped, and that deity moved in unison with him, attacking forward together. It passed through the universe's great wastelands and condensed heaven and earth black and yellow. The creation of heaven and earth, the beginning of the Tao, and the laws of deities were all hacked over. Pulse-setting heaven and earth locking. Zhang Lin still used the Origin Heavenly Book's ancient technique when facing the archaic ancestral king's exceptional technique. Streak after streak of divine light poured down from the cracks of his fingers like silken strands. They turned into streaks of gentle light that penetrated every opening. They pierced through the void and entangled forward. This was the mountain stabilizing dragon vein technique, and it could also bind the sun, moon, and stars, changing heaven and earth. Now it became a murderous divine law. The archaic ancestral king's divine wings were bound, and the deity that appeared behind him was locked down. It was as if his body was trapped in purgatory, locked in place. A miserable cry rang through the night sky. His body was torn apart, as if there were divine chains binding him, causing cracks to appear all over his body. Zhang Lin seemed to have already merged with the Tao. With a turn of his hand, endless divine light descended. The great Tao rumbled, rumbling as it descended. It was terrifying beyond compare. Pooh! This ancestral king was crushed by the heavenly Tao divine chains. His primordial spirit flew out, wishing to seize the Tao body, but it was blasted into pieces by the rumbling Tao sounds. Pung! However, at the same time, the Yuan Taoist master also suffered serious injuries, almost torn in half. An ancient ancestral king that was aged beyond recognition appeared, tearing off the remaining half of his body. Divine Valley's final ancestral king appeared. He had always been asleep, and only now did he wake up, breaking through the divine origin. He had no hair, and his skin was wrinkled. It was clear that his lifespan was near its end, and he was like a lamp that had been extinguished. However, he was still extremely powerful and terrifying to the extreme. This was the present-age ancestor of the Divine Valley. Zhang Lin's entire body was covered in blood, and the blood-colored hair on his body was dyed red. However, he was still calm and didn't connect the other half of his body, calmly facing forward. Zhang Lin. On the cliff, Yang Yi's face was covered in tears. The Yuan Taoist master, who was no longer heroic, was still as unyielding as before. Ancestral master. Yi Fan walked forward, wanting to take action. Zhang Lin stopped him and said, "The 81 great banners can destroy heaven and earth once. When to use them is up to you. However, after being brought out, they are about to collapse, and can't be used for long." After saying these words, he calmly faced the most ancient ancestral king in front of him. The night was almost over. The silver moon was setting in the west, and there wasn't much time left. Zhang Lin looked at the sky, and then at the earth. He didn't say anything, and then he turned to look at the distant cliff. There was a beautiful figure there. Dawn was approaching, and there wasn't much time left. He was about to disappear. Zhang Lin! Yang Yi cried and rushed over without a care. She threw herself into Zhang Lin's arms, letting the blood stain her white dress. She hugged him tightly and didn't want to let go, afraid that he would disappear in an instant. Promise me, live on well. Zhang Lin patted her back and slowly wiped away the tears on her face. At this moment, the strongest ancestral king of the Divine Valley finally attacked again. The great Tao suppressed the sky and destroyed everything. Through the ages, one dream severs the Tao. At the same time, Zhang Lin shouted. His body turned into an immortal light. There was no sound, no ripples, and it was boundless and extremely peaceful. This Tao slashed the entire Divine Valley. The ancestral king bore the brunt of it, and was quickly evaporated. Then the other beings in the valley collapsed one after another, turning into this immortal light. What should be done has been done. The Yuan Taoist Masters faction will wipe out the Divine Valley, suppress the north, and return peace to the human race. Zhang Lin's words were sonorous, like the ringing of swords. Finally, he reached out and gently wiped away the last drop of tears on Yang Yi's face. Zhang Lin! Yang Yi hugged him tightly, afraid of losing him. A ray of dawn broke through and tore through the sky. Zhang Lin's body was dyed in a layer of golden light. The red hair on his body all disappeared, revealing his heroic appearance. He smiled brilliantly, just like in his youth, full of confidence and extraordinary style. The Jade Lake Saintess Yang Yi was stunned. She was heartbroken and tears streamed down her cheeks. She wanted to hold on to him. However, everything was in vain. This imposing young figure turned into sand between her fingers, becoming fragments of light that slowly dripped down and gradually disappeared. No, Zhang Lin, come back. Yang Yi cried. Her tears flowed down her cheeks. She wanted to hold on to the last ray of light, but she couldn't do so no matter what. The fragments of light flowed continuously, seeping through the gaps between her fingers. That imposing figure was becoming blurry and disappearing. The fifth-generation Genesis Heaven Master, who had a peerless elegance, had left the world. It was hard to forget. He had killed his way out of the darkness and returned peace to the human race. In the end, he transformed into the Tao in the morning, turning into an eternal ray of light. The fifth-generation Yuan Taoist Master had completed his mission and done what he had to do. He left just like that, leaving behind endless sadness. This morning, would forever remember his achievements, everything he had done. Chapter 804. The resplendent glow of dawn was eternal. Zhang Lin's body turned into fragments of light that scattered with the wind, vanishing forever. The fragments of light continued to flow, unable to be stopped no matter what. Yang Yi's heart was torn. Her tears fell like rain as she wailed. The entire world was filled with her sorrowful cries. This was a depressing morning that would become an unforgettable memory, one that would never be forgotten for the rest of their lives. Yi Fan felt a wave of sourness in his heart. The fifth-generation Yuan Taoist Master had passed away just like that. A hero's downfall was like a mournful song, making people feel extremely sad. This was Zhang Lin's final destination. That radiant smile, that supreme demeanor, that golden silhouette that shattered under the first rays of dawn, became eternal, becoming an immortal scene that would be imprinted in the hearts of the people of the future. Zhang Lin, I don't want you to leave. As long as you can come back to life, I'm willing to sink into hell for all eternity to pray for you. Yang Yi wailed in despair. She knelt on the ground helplessly, and used her fingertips to touch the ground where Zhang Lin was standing. She used her pure white robe to collect the osmium soil. She trembled, cried, and sobbed as she knelt there, burying her head in the soil, never wanting to get up again. The first rays of dawn shone into the Valley of Divinities. The Grim Reapers turned into ashes one after another, only leaving behind pieces of loose black robes that drifted down to the ground. At this moment, everything ended. The invincible battle team from the Violet Mountain had turned into dust, no longer existing. The Valley of Divinities was annihilated. Bang! Yi Fan acted with lightning speed, tapping on the center of Yang Yi's brows, stabilizing her crumbling immortal foundation. On her fair forehead, a trace of red flowed down. Yang Yi's eyes dimmed as she murmured, "You've already left, what's the point of me living on?" She didn't want to live alone in this world. She only wanted to die, to end this life and follow Zhang Lin. Ancestor Zhang Lin's only wish was for you to live on well. Yi Fan spoke in a light voice. Yang Yi was filled with grief, her tears fell like rain. She hugged the soil and caressed it, placing it on her chest before pressing it against her face, as though she would never let it go. She sobbed sorrowfully, tears blurring her eyes as she thought of the past. 10,000 years ago, she was the Jade Pool's holy maiden. She was peerless in her generation and reigned supreme in the northern region. All the geniuses in the world went crazy for her. Zhang Lin, on the other hand, was heroic and imposing. He had mastered a peerless Genesis technique and possessed the ability to penetrate the heavens and the earth. He stood proudly in the world, full of vigor and confidence. 10,000 years ago, the Jade Lake Saintess and Zhang Lin were a perfect couple. One was a peerless celestial beauty, while the other was the center of attention. However, due to various reasons, the two missed each other in the end. Yang Yi was sad. Later, Zhang Lin married and had children. Many years later, he became the protector of the Jade Lake, protecting it in silence. In the latter half of their lives, they could only be bosom friends. Although they would occasionally meet, they could only stand respectfully. It was difficult for them to get close again. It wasn't until the grievous news came that Zhang Lin encountered an ominous event in his later years that he turned into a demon and passed away. Yang Yi finally broke free of all her shackles and rushed into the Purple Mountain, dying her own life for love. 10,000 years had passed, and the blue sea had turned into mulberry fields. However, to them, it was still the moment of separation. Their hearts had never changed. The eternal morning glow froze this sad scene. Yi Fan didn't want to watch anymore, and turned around to enter the depths of the Valley of Divinities. Along the way, there was fresh blood and corpses everywhere. Skeletons were everywhere. All the ancient existences had died, not a single one survived. At the moment of daybreak, Zhang Lin unleashed a world-shaking divine law. Through the ages, one dream severed the Tao, slaying the entire Valley of Divinities. This was an immortal divine light. The three great ancestral kings were completely annihilated. Countless ancient existences were crushed and completely wiped out. This kind of battle prowess and style was hard to find in this world. He had killed 3 ancient saint-level existences in one night. What kind of divine courage and tyranny was this? Yi Fan entered the depths of the Valley of Divinities and entered the various ancient palaces. He carefully searched and in the end, took away an ancient scripture and some rare treasures. However, he didn't sweep everything clean like locusts because that didn't match his status as a disciple under Great Emperor Wu Shi. Not long after, he walked out of the valley. Divine flames throbbed behind him, burning fiercely and drowning the heaven and earth. He activated the Heaven Origin Forbidden Formation that he laid down together with Zhang Lin. Endless draconic energy surged within the mountains and ravines. This place became a furnace that burned continuously and then collapsed. "Senior Yang Yi, it's time to leave," Yi Fan said softly. The matters here had already been settled and couldn't stay here any longer. Yang Yi stood up and used her pure white clothes to wrap up the yellow soil. She wiped away the last drop of tears on her face and said, "I know, I understand." Yi Fan was astonished and didn't understand what was going on. She stopped crying and a trace of luster appeared in her eyes. She became unswerving. Light flashed and an expanse of Tao patterns flickered. They stepped into the Void Realm Gate and disappeared from this place. The endless mountain range was burning. The draconic energy underground rushed up and turned into resplendent light. Many mountains collapsed and smoke filled the sky. It continuously collapsed as if the end of the world had arrived. This place became a wasteland. What happened? Why is the Valley of Gods overflowing with flames? Are they carrying out a holy sacrifice? What powerful divine might fluctuations? Could it be that they are refining an unmatched ancient weapon? Ever since the Valley of Gods appeared, this place had long become a demonic land. No one dared to approach, and those who dared to intrude were killed without mercy. Everything within a range of several thousand li was a forbidden land. Something's not right. Look at that mountain collapsing and that valley caving in. It seems like it has been destroyed. Who are these people? Could it be that they are launching a large-scale attack on the Valley of Gods? Finally, everyone noticed the abnormality. Some people began to gather their courage and approach to see what kind of changes were taking place. What? There are corpses everywhere in the Valley of Gods? Blood has formed a river and dyed the ground red. There is not a single survivor. Everyone was horrified. Who exactly did this? To completely wipe out an archaic imperial race, this was simply unimaginable. The mountain was collapsing, the valley was sinking, and the great earth was caving in. Everything was being destroyed. This place became a land of disaster, and could no longer be as grand as before. Wu Shi's subordinate Zhang Lin has solemnly carried out the great emperor's decree to suppress and destroy the Valley of Gods. Everyone was horrified. These words were like a demonic curse that resounded through the mountains and ravines. They rumbled and resounded through heaven and earth. This was the heaven origin forbidden formation operating. A clear imprint continuously supported this place, activating unmatched heavenly might. It was as if a great emperor was roaring. The tremendous voice rumbled through this great earth. It was as if a celestial emperor's ancient war chariot passed by and crushed through the heavens. It stirred up everyone's bloodlust. The Valley of Gods has been wiped out. Who can tell me what exactly is going on? News immediately spread out, triggering a huge commotion. Divine City was the first stop, and then it spread in all directions. How is this possible? At first, everyone didn't believe it at all. What kind of place was the Valley of Gods? It was a great imperial race among the 10,000 archaic races. Even though it didn't produce archaic emperors like the Blood Phoenix Mountain, Divine Silkworm Ridge, or Fire Qilin Cave, it was still incomparably terrifying. It was a glorious great race. It really has been wiped out. Not only is the Divine Valley burning, even that region is collapsing. All of the great mountains are collapsing. There were people who swore to the heavens that they saw everything with their own eyes. This triggered a tremendous commotion. Soon after, the news was verified. It was unknown just how many cultivators hurried over to personally see what was going on. There were humans among them, and there were even more ancient races of different shapes and appearances. All of the creatures here were shocked. Everything here was too terrifying. Not a single one of them was left alive. The Valley of Gods has been wiped out, and it was a single clan wipeout. This was a piece of news that shocked everyone like thunder. It made everyone's ears ring with wong-wong sounds, and even their souls were shaken. The northern region was immediately thrown into chaos. It was too shocking. Everything was just too inconceivable. An archaic imperial race was wiped out, becoming history in a single night, forever disappearing. Great Emperor, the human race still has a great emperor that hasn't died. It was Wu Shi who gave the order to wipe out the Valley of Gods. When this news was released, it was even more shocking than the Valley of Gods being wiped out. Everyone was stupefied, almost petrified. Wu Shi's subordinate, Zhang Lin, has solemnly carried out the great emperor's decree to wipe out the Valley of Gods. This divine voice, after being supported by the heaven origin divine formation, became louder and louder. In the end, it was even more resounding than heavenly thunder. It rumbled and collapsed tens of thousands of mountains. This was a voice comparable to the berating of a great emperor. Everyone who heard it felt their souls tremble. They wanted to prostrate themselves in worship and kneel for eternity. In the end, the mountains and valleys collapsed, and the incomparably mysterious heaven origin forbidden formation disappeared without a trace. The traces left behind by Yi Fan, and the others were completely erased. Everyone fought to spread this news, making many ancient races tremble in fear. The entire northern region was thrown into an uproar. Zhang Lin had already passed away, but this name was like the heavenly emperor's divine mark. It would never be erased, and it was engraved into everyone's hearts. Zhang Lin suppressed the northern region and wiped out the entire Valley of Gods. Exceptional style. The one under great Emperor Wu Shi is indeed extraordinary. It's unimaginable that he killed a great archaic imperial race. The entire northern region was in an uproar. All the races were discussing this like boiling water. It was difficult to calm down. The mountains collapsed and the valleys collapsed. The ancient heaven origin formation disappeared without a trace. Many cultivators and countless experts rushed into the Valley of Gods in search of the treasures. In the past, no one dared to step into this place. But now all the living beings rushed in together. Many human cultivators and ancient race experts opened up one burnt stone palace after another in the sunken earth veins and searched through the ruins. There were people who found many treasures and some rare treasures. Dozens of great treasures were opened one after another. On this day, the northern region was in chaos. The hearts of the ancient races trembled. They were all uneasy and fearful. The Valley of Gods was plundered in less than a day. Many people felt their hearts ache because the true divine treasury had already been burned to the ground. Only when the ancestral king personally arrived did the mountain range calm down. All the cultivators retreated in fear. Such a great event had shaken the northern region and shocked the entire world. It was impossible for the awakened ancestral king not to pay attention. In truth, there was an indescribable fear in their hearts. No one knew better than them how terrifying the three ancient kings of the Valley of Gods were. But they had been killed just like that. They had no choice but to personally come and investigate. They wanted to find out what had happened. Is the human Wuxia really alive? Even his disciple can suppress the Valley of Gods. This Zhonglin must be the all-knowing great sage. On this day, many ancient kings gathered in the ruins. They all felt a chill run down their spines. They felt an indescribable fear, and their bodies were frozen. In this battle, only one woman from the Valley of Gods came out. She wasn't killed while the others were all killed. The survivor was called Zi Tianfeng. She was Zi Tiandu's sister. Ah! The heavenly prince roared. His face was ashen as he smashed a teacup. Many ancient races knew that he had persuaded the Valley of Gods to send troops to the southern mountains to massacre the barbarian race. But now such a thing had happened. How can Wuxia still be alive? He gritted his teeth. The destruction of the Valley of Gods this time was a great blow to his prestige. As the son of God, he had a halo that others couldn't compare to, but he couldn't afford to squander it like this. Chapter 805. A person's life is but an instant in the long river of time. But if you die, it is forever, even longer than the ages. Don't talk about death so easily because life is much shorter than death. It is worth cherishing. These were the words Zhang Lin had said before. Yang Yi thought about it in a daze and her eyes became blurry again. In the end, she hugged the yellow soil and walked away step by step. Where was her next stop? Perhaps it was the old home of the Yuan Taoist master. Perhaps it was where Zhang Lin's descendants lived. Or perhaps it was the Jade Lake. Yi Fan watched her leave and could only sigh. He couldn't help her because many things had to be done by oneself. Only then could one truly pass this trial. The northern region was in chaos. The unfathomable Valley of Gods had been wiped out and removed from the myriad races. This overturned everyone's thoughts and exceeded everyone's expectations. As one of the great ancient royal races, they had experienced thousands of tribulations and had existed since ancient times. What kind of enemies had they not met before? The archaic era was extremely cruel. The ancient races were like trees in a forest and had experienced bloody battles. The battles between the races could easily last for tens of thousands of years. They were the cream of the crop. Otherwise, how could they have been passed down? The more they fought, the braver they became, and they were given the title of royal race. They were used to great scenes and had encountered countless great enemies. After passing through the great calamity of the archaic era, they thought they could rule the world and slowly cultivate for thousands of years. Who would have thought that they would be destroyed as soon as they were born? Moreover, this was done by the human race they looked down on. One had to know that in the archaic era, this race was not looked upon favorably and had faced extermination several times. They had reached this day with great difficulty. They had just woken up from their slumber and thought that their glorious era had arrived, but this was the end. Many ancient races gasped and felt a chill in their hearts. The entire northern region was not calm. Only the human race was excited and their blood was boiling. The people under great Emperor Wuxia's command had moved everyone's hearts. The impact of this battle was too great. All the ancient races were scared. Even the powerful Valley of Gods had been destroyed. Who wouldn't be scared? Yi Fan was gratified after hearing this news. Zhang Lin did not die in vain. He had suppressed the northern region in one battle, and everyone was afraid. He did not waste any time and hurried to his burial place to retrieve his true body. Back then, considering that it was too dangerous to enter the Purple Mountain, he left behind his physical body and a wisp of his primordial spirit before he left, leaving behind the hope of resurrection. The mountainous area was tranquil. Not a single blade of grass grew, and not a single sound could be heard. Yi Fan dug through the soil layer and went several thousand meters underground. His expression changed on the spot. Someone has been here. He immediately became anxious. This was his Tao body, the foundation of proving the Tao. He couldn't bear the slightest mishap. Who was it that came here? When he came to the deepest part of the underground, he saw a thief's hole. It was as if it was made by nature. Yi Fan's nose almost became crooked from anger. He cursed. That dog Duanda. This immoral fatty wasn't in front of him. If he was here, he wouldn't mind hanging him up and beating him up, turning him into a thug and turning him into a mad demon. I am a great archaeologist. There was only this line of words in the underground stone chamber, and the origin heaven formation pattern that Yi Fan had set up was disintegrated. Fatty Duan. Yi Fan grinded his teeth. Where was this bastard now? How could he find him? He left this place and used the heaven and earth transformation technique to rejuvenate this flesh shell. He then walked towards the human city because he wanted to know what had happened during the month he was missing. He didn't know if he didn't understand, but now that he understood, he was shocked. This fatty really dared to make a fuss. The heavenly prince was called an egg, and Yuan Gu was called a watermelon. He challenged everywhere and threatened to fight a decisive battle. But each time, he would brush past the enemy and never fight. This damned fatty had been provoking and clamoring everywhere for a month. Even the Valley of Gods was cursed like a hammer. He had the spirit of being the enemy of the whole world, and being the only one in the world. It was also a kind of ability that he hadn't been killed, and was still alive. During this month, the human race's saint physique was in the limelight. If not for the destruction of the Valley of Gods, he would definitely be the topic of discussion. Yi Fan was speechless. Even though the people Duanda had provoked were all people he wanted to kill, this bastard was really asking for a beating. He chased all the way, wanting to find traces of him and seize his true body. However, this bastard seemed to know that he had made too many enemies recently, and that it was somewhat dangerous. He had hidden himself, and it was difficult to find him. In the following half a month, the northern region was in chaos. All the races were thinking and investigating in secret, wanting to know the truth. Blood Phoenix Mountain, Divine Silkworm Ridge, and Fire Qilin Cave had produced ancient emperors before. It was hard to say whether there were emperor weapons or other hidden resources. Even they were shocked and searched everywhere. Whether or not the great ancient emperor was still alive became a sore point for all the ancient races. According to reason, he shouldn't be living in this world, but this battle was too frightening. Why is it like this? The archaic ancestral king muttered, and pondered for a long time without saying anything. During the archaic years, ancient trees towered into the heavens and strange beasts ran amok. Great battles often broke out between different races, but it was rare for it to be this easy. The Valley of Gods was completely destroyed in a single night. In the following month, the northern region was still in chaos. No one dared to make any big movements out of fear of touching some bottom line. Finally, the great ancient imperial families discussed and issued a notice. They said that becoming an immortal was the ultimate goal of cultivators, and that there was no need to kill each other on this path. When this news was released, the world was in an uproar. The tone of the ancient races clearly softened quite a bit, as if they were no longer high and mighty, and were willing to live in harmony with the human race. Regardless of whether it is the archaic emperors or the great human emperors of the later generations, they have all said that all things reinforce and subdue each other. There is a reason for the reproduction of different races, and the heavens treat everyone equally. Someone from the archaic imperial family said these words, and it shook the world. Did they change their unyielding attitude? Were they really going to treat the human race peacefully? After the sect masters of the human race learned of this, they faintly guessed at the ancient race's fear and intentions. They quickly responded, saying that a rarely seen great era had arrived, and that it should be a flourishing age and not a terrifying age of chaos. In the following period of time, the northern region's chaos eased by a great deal. Whether it was the human race or the ancient races, they all let out a long breath of relief. During this period of time, all sides were probing each other. They sent out some signals through some special occasions, and many of them were critical issues. In the end, as if they had reached a tacit understanding, the ancient races no longer said that they would go on an expedition to conquer the regions with the most spirit medicines, dragon energy, earth marrow, and other such resources. The human great sects also expressed their stance at a suitable time. The 5 regions were vast and boundless, and there were many famous mountains and rivers that could be conquered. The 10,000 races wouldn't lack pure lands. Zhonglin's battle had shaken the northern region, and the world seemed to have calmed down. It was unlikely that chaos would occur in the near future. However, all the great sects knew that this was only a temporary calm. No one knew what would happen in the future. Ancestor, this battle of yours caused the various races of the supreme ancient immortal realms to fear you. Your achievements will forever be remembered by the human race. Yi Fan let out a long sigh. He poured a bowl of wine on the ground and offered it to the ancestor. At the same time, he felt a sense of nostalgia. Great Emperor Wu Shi's fame was truly unrivaled. This time, borrowing his name had played an inconceivable role. This might not last long. Yi Fan muttered to himself. If he wanted to continue shocking them, it would only become more and more difficult. Although there were still a few steps he could take, it wasn't time yet. At the very least, there would be a period of peace. He had to quickly grow up so that when the true dark chaos erupted, he would have a foothold. The 10,000 ancient races were inextricably linked to the 7 great life-forbidden zones. This was a place that not even the ancient emperors could completely raze to the ground. If one thought about it deeply, it was just too terrifying. Had a period of relative peace arrived? Everyone was rejoicing. It was just that no one knew how long this would last. Duandi, you bastard. Where did you go exactly? Yi Fan cursed. Ba. On this day, in the distant western desert, an ancient Buddhist chant rang out from Mount Meru, shaking all the ancient temples. On this day, a Buddha child from the western desert crossed the central continent and entered the eastern wasteland. Finally, he came to the northern region and brought a decree. Peace under the heavens. There were only these 4 words, bold and powerful. The moment it was unfolded, the heavenly Tao rumbled. Divine sounds descended from the heavens and Tao light rushed into the heavens. It was as if a group of ancient Buddhas were chanting. Their voices resounded throughout the world, shocking everyone. The victorious fighting Buddha had not died. This news spread out immediately. The 5 regions were shaken, and even the ancient races were shocked. All the ancient kings were shaken. Regardless of whether it was the human race or the archaic races, they didn't know what kind of feelings they should have towards him, because it was rumored that he was an archaic king, but he converted to the human race's Buddhism, cultivating on Mount Meru and becoming a Buddha. Previously, it was rumored that he had passed away in seclusion. Unexpectedly, he didn't die and was still alive in this world. Even the ancient races were incomparably powerful, but they couldn't help but be wary of him, let alone the human race. Who was the victorious fighting Buddha? It was rumored that he was a sacred ape, the younger brother of the ancient fighting sacred emperor. He had grown up under his guidance, and his cultivation was terrifyingly high. Back then, he feared nothing and could rampage through the world. His cultivation was comparable to sacred emperors of the same age, and he had killed countless powerful existences. If it was really him, even the strongest ancient king would have to think twice before jumping out. Moreover, after the ancient races came out, they all went to the ancient land of the battle-sacred ape lineage to search. They didn't sense the aura of the old sacred emperor's weapon. Many people guessed that it had been taken away by his younger brother. The younger brother of the ancient emperor of fighting. If he had an ancient imperial weapon, who could resist? It wouldn't be too much of a problem if he wanted to wipe out an entire race. He had come out of seclusion at this time and passed down such a decree. It would naturally cause a huge commotion. Was the victorious fighting Buddha trying to mediate the current conflict and make all sides calm down? This wasn't something that just anyone could do. However, no one dared to say anything against him. Yi Fan was quite shocked. Laozi, Sakyamuni, victorious fighting Buddha. There was finally still one of these familiar names in this world that hadn't gone far. Not long after, the northern region was in a heated discussion. It was almost boiling because the ancient races had actually proposed to hold a meeting of the myriad races. This was definitely shocking news, and it was most likely related to the victorious fighting Buddha. At that time, all the races would have to send people to participate. Such a grand meeting would definitely cause a sensation. Many sect masters of the human race responded. They felt that there should be such a meeting. At that time, they could sit down and discuss some important issues in detail. Chapter 806. Previously, the situation had been tense. The ancient imperial family had wanted to massacre the Southern Mountains barbarian race. But now such a reversal had occurred. Zhang Lin had succeeded in suppressing the northern region, and the convention of the myriad races was about to follow. This was beyond everyone's expectations. Half a month later, there was definite news that the convention wasn't empty talk. It was really going to be held, and it had already been confirmed. The world was in an uproar. The ancient races were too mysterious to the human race. They were all incomparably powerful. Now they were actually going to sit face to face and discuss the future. This was truly a huge matter. That damn Duanda. Let's see where you can run this time. Yi Fan believed that such a convention would definitely involve the unscrupulous Taoist. However, he wasn't worried that Fatty Duan wouldn't return the body because the heaven-devouring demon jar was still in his hands. The damn Fatty probably did this because he was afraid that he wouldn't return it. The convention of the myriad races was definitely incomparably grand. Where and when it was held would definitely be very particular. This was because this was a matter of great importance. The ancient races were extremely powerful. If they really wiped out the human race experts, they wouldn't even have a place to cry. In the end, after discussions between the races and the request of the human race, the venue of the convention was chosen to be the Jade Pool. This was a safe arrangement. The Jade Pool had the green-gold pagoda of immortal tears, which was also the West Emperor Pagoda. There was no need to fear any unforeseen events, and it could make the races behave themselves. To show their sincerity, the ancient race agreed to this request. Because they hadn't left the northern region, they had nothing to fear if there was a war. The humans were somewhat surprised to see them agree so readily. They couldn't help but think of Blood Phoenix Mountain, Divine Silkworm Ridge, Fire Cheelan Cave, and other places that had produced emperors. Could they all have ancient emperor weapons? These days, Yi Fan had been nourishing this saint body with spirit medicines. He consumed a lot every day, and what he needed was bought from the auction house of the northern region Divine City. Now he didn't lack source power. At this level he could turn stone into gold. Moreover, he had flattened the Wang family of the northern plains and bathed the Divine Valley in blood. He had obtained a lot of divine source. This old body, after being nourished for half a month, was sparkling and translucent. Then he used the heaven and earth transformation art to transform it into his own appearance and reconstruct it. During these past few days, he had been cultivating his flesh shell while comprehending the Tao. The ancient scripture he obtained from the Valley of Gods was indeed extraordinary. It had its own unique aspects, explaining how to strengthen the primordial spirit. The fist-sized golden figure sat cross-legged on the immortal foundation of a sage. His entire body radiated resplendent golden light, as he cultivated the divine spirit condensation technique of the ancient races. His body grew increasingly sturdier and more imperishable. Beams of divine light shot out one after another, converging together to form 9 divine halos. They appeared on the immortal platform and revolved around Yi Fan. After being enlightened by this ancient scripture and being remodeled, he firmly stood on the 9th minor step of the 2nd level of the immortal foundation realm. Moving towards the perfection boundary, Yi Fan's spirit resided within the sacred shell. He borrowed the exuberant golden blood energy to refine his spirit, and possessed an extremely powerful effect. Buzz. The void trembled. Yi Fan's spirit stepped out from the space between his brows. It was only the size of a fist, but it became more and more solid. 9 divine rings appeared behind his head, turning into undying Tao light. There was a vague sound of the great Tao resonating, rumbling about. Whoosh! Finally, with a flash of light, the golden figure once again sat cross-legged on the immortal foundation. At the same time, the sacred shell opened its eyes. There's still some time before the convention of the myriad races. Let's go see some old friends first. During these days, Yifan felt vaguely uneasy. After such a long time, he still hadn't heard any news from Pangbo. He didn't know where he was or if he was still alive. 2 days later, he crossed into the southern region and entered the Supreme Mystery Sect. Step by step, he came to the humble peak. This peak was still the same as before. There was no magnificent waterfall, no picturesque scenery, and there was no fragrance of flowers and birds. There were only a few stone halls that were about to collapse and large patches of weeds. The others didn't notice, but on the lonely peak overgrown with weeds, an old man opened his eyes and looked down. Yifan was shocked. Old man Leroy's strength was unfathomable. He came here on the body of a sage and stepped on the Ro incantation, but he was still discovered. Why did you change your physical body? Leroy asked. His eyes were like torches as he stared straight at the source. Yifan was surprised. Every time he saw this old man, his cultivation level would increase greatly. His speed was frightening. Back then, Leroy sat on the humble peak for hundreds of years, and didn't make any progress until he finally soared into the sky. It could be said that a great talent matured slowly. Greetings, senior. Yifan bowed. Back then, the old man had done him a great favor, and allowed him to obtain the Bu incantation. When he was chased by all the Holy Lands and no one dared to interact with him, the old man recognized him as his disciple. Leroy nodded in satisfaction. Seeing Yifan's primordial spirit sitting on the 9th small step of the 2nd layer of the immortal foundation, he was very satisfied. Yifan. Within a ruined palace hall, a man walked out. He was extremely moved, grabbing his hand with a single motion. Although he had entered the sacred shell, before coming here, Yifan had molded it into his own appearance. Zhang Wenchang recognized him at a glance. It's me. I heard that you entered the starry space ancient pathway, and left together with the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. 12 years later, you returned. What happened exactly? Did you really return to the other side of the starry space? Zhang Wenchang asked in agitation. He missed his wife and son, he couldn't forget the past. No. Yifan shook his head. He sat down and told Leroy and Zhang Wenchang about his experiences in the past 10 years. After that, he asked about the mysterious man attacking the humble peak. If he wanted to understand clearly what kind of enemy he was, he had to have an idea. The invaders are extraordinary. Old man Leroy spoke. Yifan started. He could sense that this old man had already severed his Tao and was definitely a king. Yet he still had such an evaluation. This was no small matter. A badly damaged 9-orifice stone golem was the main attacker. The others didn't act, and were merely spectating from afar. What? How is this possible? Yifan was dumbfounded. When had he provoked such a creature? How could it be like this? Zhang Wenchang's cultivation was only at the 4 extreme secret realm, but old man Leroy was very satisfied. He said that there would be a day when a dragon would soar. Yifan sighed. In this world, perhaps only this old man was willing to teach this disciple. If it was anyone else, they would have long since abandoned him. He had a vague feeling that this old man would definitely have great accomplishments in the future. Every time they met, he would experience a qualitative leap. His cultivation speed was terrifying. Senior, this is an ancient scripture I obtained. I can't understand it, so I want to give it to you. Yifan took out a scroll of scripture. It was given to him by the 3rd beauty of the Central Plains, Princess Yudai. She said it was written by an ancient emperor in his later years. It was different from other methods. It talked about flowers, birds, fishes, and bugs, standing aloof from worldly affairs. That kind of mentality was almost impossible for humans. Moreover, there were no secret techniques or Tao methods. Yifan studied it for a long time, but couldn't find a way. He believed that this ancient scripture wasn't suitable for him. He had always wanted to find an opportunity to give it to Li Ruoyu because he felt it was too similar to the great Tao of nature. As expected, when the old man received the scroll and carefully studied it, he revealed a serious expression for the first time. He sighed and said, "As expected, it was written by an ancient emperor. I hope it can help Senior comprehend the Tao." Yi Fan believed that this scripture was given to the right person. Rather than calling it an ancient scripture, it's better to call it a handwritten letter. I believe this was either left behind by the Grand Emperor, or written by Emperor Hengyu in his later years. Li Ruoyu said. Yi Fan was astonished. The old man was unfathomable as expected. He could even deduce this. When the day comes when you are about to become a saint, come back here and retrieve this ancient scripture. Although there is no specific method, carefully studying it will be greatly beneficial. It can help you pass the test, the old man said solemnly. Wenchang, I'll wait for the day you soar into the heavens. Yi Fan stood up and bid farewell to Li Ruoyu. Not long after, he went to the Ji family. Of course, he was secretly let in. He came to the ancient cave where Ji Haoyue was cultivating in seclusion. It was very lively here. Yan Yishi, Li Tian, Li Heishui, and the others were all here. They were all very excited. Little Yi, you succeeded. The Wuxia bell rang for 3 months in a row. That's too abnormal. Li Heishui said. How did you destroy the Divine Spirit Valley? Tell us quickly, Li Tian said. Big brother Yi, was it really you who cursed the Heavenly Prince and Yuangu? Dongfang Man asked. Their hearts were filled with questions. They were shocked by everything that had happened recently and couldn't understand it. Yi Fan told them everything in detail. They couldn't help but sigh when he mentioned Zhang Lin's death. Zhang Lin's heroic spirit is unparalleled and he died. However, I feel that Yang Yi might be in pain. Why is reality always so helpless? Ji Ziyue murmured. In the end, they all went north because the convention of the myriad races was about to begin. Rumor had it that Huang Shudao, Fire Qilin, the divine silkworm Taoist, the heavenly prince, Yuangu and the others would all appear. Not to mention the true giants of the ancient races. Some of them would definitely appear. At that time, it would really be a gathering of the wind and clouds. However, they separated and didn't travel together. This was due to Yi Fan's strong request. The main reason was that the bastard Duanda had caused a lot of trouble for him. He didn't know when someone would jump out to settle the score. The human race's sacred physique was too popular recently. There was still half a month before the convention of the myriad races would begin, but countless cultivators had already arrived in advance and entered this area. In the northern region, there were patches of scarlet land that easily spanned tens of thousands of miles. Not even a blade of grass grew, and most of them were barren lands. Although the Jade Lake was in the northern region, it wasn't one of them. It was located in an area with fragrant flowers and pleasant scenery. There was the tranquility of a bamboo forest, the natural nature of a stone arch bridge, and the spectacular sight of a 3,000-foot waterfall. Yi Fan had already been here during the Feast of Peaches, so he wasn't unfamiliar with this place. He didn't expect that the convention of the myriad races would be held here again. He didn't go in but stayed outside the Jade Lake, quietly waiting for Fatty Duan to appear. After waiting for 7 or 8 days, his target really showed up. Yi Fan was so angry that the roots of his teeth were itching. He saw another him, dressed in purple and had a heroic appearance. However, upon closer inspection, his gaze was too crafty and he didn't seem like a good person. This bastard. His other self swaggered over without the slightest bit of concealment. Moreover, he had his hands behind his back and looked down on the world. Damn fatty. Yi Fan rushed over immediately and shouted, scaring Duanda. He then said with a smile, Why are you so fierce? If you want to vent your anger, I'll go all out and let you beat me to your heart's content. Damn you, that's my body. Throw your skin out and let me kick you to my heart's content. Chapter 807. Fatty Duan came over as if he was asking for a beating. Hit me with everything you've got, I'll let you vent your anger. Damn Duanda, this is my flesh. Yi Fan grabbed his collar and resisted the urge to beat him into a pig's head. He actually wanted to kick him crazily. This damned fatty was too hateful. No matter how he looked at him, he looked like he deserved a beating. His smile was unlikable. Jade Lake. Auspicious energy swirled around spiritual peaks, auspicious earth accompanied by multicolored clouds. The beautiful lake was enshrouded in mist, creating a picturesque scene. Gazing into the distance, there was no lack of majestic energy amidst the beauty. 3,000 feet of silver waterfalls, 8,000 zhang of giant mountains, grand and magnificent like a Kunlun immortal realm. Outside the Jade Lake, there were people descending on auspicious clouds from time to time. There were humans riding on flying swords, as well as ancient creatures shrouded in demonic energy. During this distinguished meeting, all of the 10,000 archaic races will come. Are you just throwing your life away by swaggering through the streets like this? Yi Fan pressed down on his head, wanting to forcefully extract his primordial spirit. Don't worry, the first rule of the Jade Lake Distinguished Meeting is that no matter how great the enmity is, no battles are allowed here. Duanda resisted with all his might. Yi Fan was shocked. This damned fatty was truly a bit unfathomable. He actually couldn't force out his primordial spirit. I'll return it to you later. This place isn't suitable. Duanda grimaced in pain. It was clear that he was under great pressure as well. Don't waste your energy. No matter what, this grandpa is still someone who will rebuild after breaking, even though I still broke in the end. From time to time, creatures riding on ancient treasures passed by. When they saw them, they couldn't help but give them a few glances. Soon after, someone finally recognized them. Isn't that the human race's holy body? He also came. Many people were shocked. Quite daring, actually daring to come here. Aren't you scared of having your tendons pulled out and your bones peeled off? An old ancient creature laughed coldly in the distance. Duanda sneered and said, with this one here, you can just King stay where you are. Even though the distinguished meeting has rules that forbid killing, if you provoke me, I'll still blast you into dregs. That ancient creature released a cold snort and turned around to leave. He came from a small clan, so he didn't dare to recklessly take action here. Otherwise, if he really was killed by the Western Emperor Pagoda, no one would help him. You feel good using my body to show off, don't you? Yi Fan's expression was not friendly, but he did not immediately withdraw his body, because he was already at the peak of the second level of Immortal Foundation. Once his spirit and shell fused together, he would definitely attract a supreme heavenly tribulation. It was truly not suitable for him to do so in the Jade Lake. This was also the reason why he had the confidence to enter the Jade Pool. Even when facing the ancestors, he dared to trigger the thunder punishment and let them suffer the great tribulation of the saints. I say, brat, you need to be honest. The heaven-devouring demon jar is with you, so why would I show my might? When are you going to return it to me? Fatty Duan said forcefully. They walked into the Jade Pool side by side. Yi Fan didn't pay any more attention to him. He just felt that if he really needed to go through the heavenly tribulation, he would first strike this bastard until white smoke came out of him. You don't say. The various races of the supreme ancient immortal realms all have their own personalities. Look over there, there's a fellow with the head of a dog, the body of a human, and a pair of pure white divine wings on his back. There's even a divine halo around him. How interesting. Duanda commented. Shut up for me. If you dare to say another word, I will seal your mouth. Yi Fan spoke. This bastard actually dared to use his fleshly body to attract hatred here. He was truly asking for a beating. In that case, let's split up. You walk your path and I'll walk mine. Let's not obstruct each other's eyes. Duanda hesitated. After that, he stared at a figure that resembled a fiend god as he spoke. What's the origin of this person? He's so ferocious and has 4 heads and 8 arms. I'm sure it won't be easy to slaughter him. It was clear that the ancient creature in front of them heard their words. Its black hair was thick, and it wore King Clan armor. It was a dignified divine object, its eyes as sharp as sword radiance. If you keep grumbling, I don't want your body anymore. Either way, I have an even more powerful divine shell. The heaven-devouring devil jar will belong to me. Yi Fan threatened. Don't. Let's just walk around and chat. If I say any more, just slap my mouth. I won't resist at all. Motherf *Ker, that's my body. Hey look, there's a deity over there. He really is ferocious and powerful. His entire body is shining. If we hang him up, He might be able to become an everlasting lamp. Your mouth really is lowly. That's a king-level expert. I'll skin you alive later. Just skin me then. I won't resist at all. Return my body to me. I'm just speaking casually. Hey look, there's an unmatched overlord over there. He has 9 beautiful women's heads, yet he has a phoenix body. It's truly inconceivable. Those tail feathers are so beautiful. Pung. Yi Fan covered his mouth. This bastard's mouth was truly deserving of being trampled on. His mouth had reached the acme of perfection. Motherf asterisk cur, don't cover my mouth. I actually just wanted to say that a fan made from phoenix feathers is definitely priceless. I dug up a saint's tomb before, but unfortunately, a senior had already visited and only found a precious fan stone inscription. What a pity. Fatty Duan was like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. There were still a few more days before the myriad clans meeting would begin, but many cultivators had already arrived at the Jade Pool. The races stood in great numbers, and their appearances were all different. Many of the creatures were like gods and demons, extremely frightening. The Jade Pool was very vast, but there were many restrictions. Many areas couldn't be set foot in. With the divine might of the immortal Tyr's green golden pagoda covering the sky and earth, no one dared to take a step forward. However, the area that was open for the meeting was also very vast. Precious trees were verdant and ancient trees were everywhere. There were spiritual peaks one after another, and there were lakes one after another. Clouds and multicolored clouds adorned the pure land. The area was vast enough, just to avoid conflicts from clashing with the different races. Dang! The divine bell rang out in a long and drawn-out manner. Many human race sect masters and ancient creatures all went out to welcome them. A cave master of the Fire Qilin Cave's 13th cave had arrived. This kind of identity couldn't help but be respectful. This was a race that had produced ancient emperors. They were extremely powerful during the archaic years, and there was a period when they ruled over the world. The tens of thousands of races all revered them, and there was no one who didn't fear them. They had wiped out many great races that didn't obey their orders. This race's inheritance is ancient. And the most terrifying thing is that there is an ancient prince still alive. He is their bloodline's trump card, personally sealed in the divine source by the archaic emperor back then. Some people discussed. Now that the various races appeared in the world, many secrets were revealed. The so-called ancient emperor's son should be the Fire Qilin. I wonder if he came or not. I believe he will definitely come to this kind of distinguished meeting. An ancient creature spoke with reverence. Even though they were all archaic races, there was still a difference in status, to the extent where the difference was like the clouds and mud. The human race didn't know for sure, but they could infer one or two things from the sons of the ancient great emperors. The sons of the ancient great emperors, every single one of them were exceptional figures from past to present. All of them only half a step away from verifying the Tao. They possessed incomparable talent and terrifyingly powerful bloodline power. These weren't empty words, because during the darkness chaos, there were imperial sons who appeared, sacrificing themselves for the Tao, suppressing all of the great chaos. Unfortunately, those heroes were all used up in the darkness chaos. If not for the fact that they were born in the same era as their imperial fathers, they would have already verified the Tao back then. Now, even though these ancient princes hadn't grown up yet, not reaching great success, they still avoided their father's generation. Sooner or later, they would definitely shock the world. Sai, do you know why I challenged the heavenly princes and Yuan Gu, and then missed them each time? Duanda was in a bad mood. Those bastards really are powerful. Even if we are at the same level, I still feel like the divine body doesn't have any advantage. Yi Fan was speechless. He had never believed that the divine body was number one under the heavens. The bloodline of the previous generations of ancient emperors was incomparable. There was nothing much to say, but he believed that he could compete with them. However, he knew that verifying the Tao wasn't determined by one's bloodline. Back then, the great emperor was merely a mortal, but in the end, he stepped on the corpses of many kings to reach the apex, becoming unrivaled throughout the ages. Comparatively speaking, Yuan Gu isn't the most terrifying because he has the bloodline of the ancient emperors. Duanda actually revealed this piece of information. Half a day later, The divine bell rang again. One of the 17 mountain lords of the Blood Phoenix Mountain had arrived. His status was illustrious and incomparably respected. This bloodline had also produced ancient emperors and ruled over an archaic era. In the following 2 days, the human race was in an awkward situation. Up until now, only the barbarian king could be considered to be able to control the situation. There were no other kings. This was indeed an unnatural scene. The divine bell rang every day, but up until now, only the barbarian king of the human race was worthy of greeting. One didn't need to think to know that on the day of the Great Assembly, some great races would definitely send ancient kings. However, did the human race still have saints in this era? When they thought of this problem, many people didn't have the confidence to raise their heads. It would be great if Great Emperor Wu Shi appeared. Even if all the ancient kings of the various races came, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Yeah, even if the emperor's might doesn't appear, when the time comes, the human race's great sage Zhonglin can also come personally. Many people in the human race were discussing like this to cover up their current predicament. Yi Fan and Duanda had always been carefully observing. They understood the various races of the archaic era, and compared their strengths. Saying that there were 10,000 races was actually an exaggeration. How could there be so many? 2 days later, a commotion broke out outside the Jade Pool. Although the divine bell didn't ring, many people rushed over to take a look. Who has arrived? Duanda was suspicious. Let's go take a look, said Yi Fan. Outside the Jade Pool, a young man walked over. He seemed calm, but every step he took seemed to harmonize with the heaven and earth. There was an indescribable rhythm to it. This was an extremely beautiful man. His appearance would make many women in the world jealous. He could be said to be peerless in style. His entire body was sparkling and flowing with divine splendor. There were several old servants protecting him. This was the first time Yi Fan had seen a man who was even more handsome than Hua Yunfei. There was nothing to pick on, and he was close to perfection. Heavenly Prince. Many ancient creatures bowed together. They were extremely sincere, and there wasn't the slightest bit of falsehood. This was the son of the undying Heavenly Emperor. He had appeared today. Yi Fan's eyes flickered with light. He finally saw the only bloodline of the deities in the hearts of the various races of the archaic era. The Heavenly Prince was surrounded by a 5-colored divine ring. He was like the son of a deity that descended into this world. Even his hair seemed to be sparkling as he walked over step by step. His eyes were extremely deep. Within them, there were actually mountains and rivers evolving, the vicissitudes of time, and all kinds of deductions of ascension to immortality. It was truly shocking. Yi Fan was astonished. This was definitely the precious inheritance left behind by the undying Heavenly Emperor. It was a priceless secret. The Heavenly Prince stared at Yi Fan and Duanda with a single glance. His eyes swirled with radiance. An elder behind him even snorted coldly. Human race's holy physique, you came as well. This time you finally didn't miss it. Let's see where you can run to this time. That elder sneered coldly. His killing intent was boundless. Suddenly, a long roar sounded from the distance. However, a streak of golden holy light had already arrived before the sound. It carried with it heaven overflowing blood energy as it smashed down with a large black rod. You're right. Let's see where you can run to this time. A golden figure rushed over and shouted loudly. Audacious. An old servant behind the Heavenly Prince walked up and blocked in front of him, facing this large rod. Pooh. Without any suspense, after the black rod smashed down, this unfathomably powerful old servant was smashed into meat paste. He was crushed on the spot. This was actually a golden holy ape. Its entire body was resplendent and blood energy filled the sky. It faced the sky and roared with incomparable might. Yi Fan was overjoyed. The monkey was unharmed and actually arrived today. The others all turned pale with fright. The son of the Emperor of Fighting had arrived. His status was high, and he came for the Heavenly Prince. No one could compare to him. Chapter 808. After a few months, the monkey appeared in this world again. He didn't encounter a great disaster. He stood there with a large black gold rod in his hand, appearing extremely heroic. At this moment, his eyes were fiery, and the hair on his body flickered with brilliance. It was as if they were cast from gold. His entire body was resplendent, as if a deity had descended into the mortal world. The large black rod was dripping with blood. One of the heavenly prince's protectors was beaten into a pile of mush. Bones and blood flew everywhere. The sacred prince appeared and even faced off against the heavenly prince. This was undoubtedly a huge commotion, triggering a huge commotion. Then news quickly spread, and many people hurried over after hearing the news. What is the meaning of this? The heavenly prince's black hair scattered about. He was surrounded by a 5-colored divine ring. There were 9 of them in total, protecting him at the center. The monkey was extremely domineering. Golden holy light surged around his body, and the large black gold rod in his hand pointed forward. He looked forward arrogantly and said, "I don't have any other intentions. I just want to slaughter you." In all directions, everyone's expressions changed greatly. The inheritor of the battle's sacred ape bloodline had arrived. This was truly a confrontation that exceeded everyone's expectations. The sacred prince against the heavenly prince could be said to be opposing each other with equal harshness. Their statuses were all illustrious, and many archaic races had to bow down to them. They were the ones with the most powerful bloodlines, and their origins were terrifying. There was no need to talk about the undying emperor. There were countless legends about him, and he was an unrivaled existence that exceeded deities. The emperor of fighting was the last emperor of the archaic years. His strength was tyrannical and could be said to be heaven-defying. He was known as the Sacred Emperor, and he was the only one since ancient times. Their descendants clashed, and it was like a comet smashing into the great earth. The radiance was dazzling, and everyone couldn't help but pay attention. This was a clash between the most powerful descendants. Sacred Prince, you are unrestrained, killing my subordinates in front of everyone. Do you think my temper is too gentle? The heavenly prince walked forward. His appearance was heroic and majestic, perfect, and extremely dazzling. It was as if an ancient emperor had revived. I already said that I am going to kill you. In the past, you incited many people to take action against me. Yet you still have the face to say these words. Today, I have recovered from my injuries, and I am going to kill all of you with a single strike. The monkey's aura was extremely wild. The golden battle saint's aura surged through the 9 heavens like a war god. None of the ancient creatures here dared to speak. They all felt great reverence towards these two. This was a battle between ancient princes, and normal people had no qualifications to interfere. Boom. The black cudgel in monkey's hand swung down, dripping with blood. Droplets of blood dripped down, causing the void to tremble incessantly like a rag. The expression of an old servant behind the heavenly prince changed. He walked up to face the attack, not allowing his master to advance. He activated a copper lamp, the flame of the lamp's wick burning the heavens, suppressing downwards. Crack! The dark gold rod in the monkey's hand was even heavier than a mountain. It shattered the light and extinguished the divine flames, and it shattered the copper lamp into pieces with the might of Mount Tai. Pooh! There was still no suspense. This extremely powerful old servant's head was blasted into countless peach blossoms. Even his primordial spirit couldn't escape, destroyed in his flesh. I've become a king. A servant behind the heavenly prince exclaimed. He quickly rushed forward and stood in front of the heavenly prince, blocking the monkey's attack. Clang! This old servant held a dragon horn mace that released a string of scarlet light. A scarlet dragon flew out and collided with the large mace, releasing waves of Tao sounds. All types of auspicious lights and auspicious colors shone brilliantly. This was a confrontation between kings. The people in the back were horrified, all of them quickly backing up. An expert of this level was rarely seen in the human race, making many sect masters suck in a cold breath of air. The great battle was fast and intense. The monkey was like the emperor of fighting, trampling on heaven and earth, the large rod sweeping out, valiant under the heavens, brandishing the world. Dang! Sparks flew in all directions between the metal rod and the dragon horn mace. Strand after strand of auspicious energy was destroyed, auspicious light scattered. The great Tao traces were blasted apart. The monkey's power suppressed all directions, blasting this old servant until he coughed out blood and retreated. Truly worthy of being the son of the holy emperor, famous for his fighting prowess, intimidating the world. He injured me when he was just at the initial stage of severing the Tao. This old servant's chest rose and fell intensely, his entire body swirling with radiance. He was extremely shocked. Good. Yi Fan was sincerely happy for the monkey. Not only did the monkey return alive, it even crossed a threshold that was extremely difficult to cross. One had to understand that the third immortal severing Tao had stopped who knew how many people. Those with world-shocking talent might face even greater resistance. The Heavenly Prince's expression finally changed. He was also stuck at this trial, not successfully severing the Tao even now. If he faced the monkey just now, it would most likely be disastrous. Child of God, do not take action. What you lack is only time. A year of cultivation is equivalent to 100 years of cultivation for others. In the future, no one will be able to contend against you. That old servant spoke. Sacred Prince, you are a member of the archaic emperor race, yet you walk together with the human race's divine body, even taking action against the various clans. Are you going to betray your ancestors? The Heavenly Prince shouted. You really care too much. Who I walk together with, do you have the right to care? Also, stop putting so many hats on me. During the archaic era, the 10,000 clans stood in great numbers, fighting all year round. Blood flowed like rivers in the savage Great Earth. And as for how many clans were wiped out, no one could say for sure. I've never heard of the 10,000 clans being a single family, all of them dominating for thousands of years. Apart from this, the human race is also a branch of the 10,000 clans. Regardless of whether I walk together with the human race's divine body or the Blood Phoenix Mountain's inheritor, there isn't much of a difference. The monkey was also extremely sharp. His aura was like a rainbow as he walked forward with the rod in hand. He wanted to attack and kill the Heavenly Prince. The Heavenly Prince sneered and said, "The present is no longer the archaic era. The various clans have reappeared, wishing to rule the world once more. However, the original Great Earth has already been completely occupied by the human race. Could it be that your actions are not rebelling against the various great clans? What is the coexistence of 10,000 clans? You don't understand at all, so don't try to reason with me. Do you really think that you are the child of God? I don't feel anything special about the undying Heavenly Emperor at all." When the monkey's words sounded, the expressions of many ancient creatures changed. The undying Heavenly Emperor was a taboo existence that could not be blasphemed against. Shut your mouth. What ability do you have to dare criticize the archaic Heavenly Emperor? This is a great crime of disrespect, one that must be punished by the entire world. The old servant that was fighting against the Heavenly Prince shouted with the dragon horn mace in hand. Even a servant like you dares to shout in front of me? Get lost. The monkey shouted loudly. The metal rod swung outwards, blasting the Heavenly Prince into retreat. Cracks appeared one after another on his body, and a streak of blood flowed out from the space between his brows. Sacred Prince, you are going too far. The Heavenly Prince's eyes were terrifying. His black hair flowed down like a waterfall, and 9 divine rings appeared behind him. There was a total of 5 colors, as if he was the reincarnation of the Heavenly Emperor. The monkey laughed coldly and said, "Back then, when my father corroborated the Tao, he completely overturned your old man's Tao field. What kind of divine miracle is that? He was blasted into dregs by a single sacred emperor fist. He was merely deified by the later generations." When these words sounded, the entire place became silent. This was a taboo topic, yet the monkey didn't care at all. When he spoke like this, it made the hearts of many ancient races pound. The Emperor of Fighting was an existence that didn't fear the heavens or earth. He didn't believe in the so-called gods of the past at all. Otherwise, why would he dare to have such a title? There was only one thought in his heart, and that was, "With me, I am invincible." Regardless of who it was, even if it was a legendary deity, as long as he faced them, he would only punch through them and blast them into powder. The various races of the archaic era had indeed heard of these rumors, but no one dared to discuss them too much. The end of the archaic era was the world of the sacred battle ape bloodline. The sacred emperor ruled the world, so who dared to go against him? Who would have thought that today? The monkey didn't feel any restraints and spoke everything out loud. making many ancient creatures keep quiet out of fear. Yi Fan finally understood why the heavenly prince wanted to take the monkey's life after he emerged into the world. Turns out there was this type of secret behind it. Even if you have the bloodline of an ancient emperor, you still cannot blaspheme the unmatched heavenly emperor. Today we will execute you. The injured old servant held the dragon horn mace and attacked again. The sonorous voice of the great Tao was like a sea, and auspicious light filled the sky as it hacked towards the monkey's head. At the same time, an even older ancient creature threw himself over, rushing towards the monkey. Yi Fan's expression changed. He sensed how powerful this person was and feared that something would happen to the monkey. The unmatched sacred shell erupted with brilliance, but it concealed its mysteries as it immediately rushed over. Pung! His fist smashed outwards, colliding with that even older servant. A string of bloody radiance erupted. That old servant's palm first exploded, and then his entire arm exploded. In the end, his body also cracked apart, flying outwards, but he didn't rot away. At the same time, the monkey's rod also smashed the dragon horn mace into several dozen pieces, causing that old servant's arms to split apart and fall off. In the surroundings, regardless of whether it was the ancient creatures or humans, they were all incomparably shaken. However, not a single person dared to step forward. The grudges between the ancient emperor's son was something they didn't want to get involved in. On the battlefield, Yi Fan and the monkey stood shoulder to shoulder. Duanda also walked over with large steps, and then they pressed forward together like three war gods. Golden blood energy linked together. Sacred Prince, so what if you've severed your Tao? Do you really think I can't do anything to you? The heavenly prince's voice was cold. The 9 divine rings behind his head quickly enlarged and released a wave of terrifying fluctuations. Divine child, calm your anger and do not forcefully take action. Your talents are number one throughout the ages, and when you succeed in severing your Tao, no one in the same generation can match you. You will become an existence like the heavenly emperor. Please enter the jade pool, we will deal with him. His protector spoke. Shameless boasting. The monkey spat coldly and said, back then, my father's greatest regret was that he wasn't born in the same era as the undying heavenly emperor and couldn't blast him into dregs. Now that you and I are in the same era, it's perfect for me to deal with you and fulfill my old father's wish. These words could be said to be extremely disgraceful and unfilial, but not a single one of the surrounding ancient creatures dared to say anything. They all pretended not to have heard anything. The monkey's father was the archaic era's last sacred emperor. Many ancient creatures had personally experienced the era when he ruled over the world. His battle prowess could crush the heavens. Even now, they would feel great fear and reverence whenever they talked about him. Back then, even the most powerful individuals of the various races had to prostrate themselves in worship. He was too high to reach. After all, he was a living sacred emperor. He was a bit more real than the legendary undying heavenly emperor. It was also precisely because of this that no matter how domineering the monkey was, and how disrespectful he was towards the archaic heavenly emperor, no one felt that it was strange. The battle's sacred ape bloodline had always been like this. They didn't fear the heavens or the earth, destroying all legends. At this moment, Yi Fan the monkey and Duanda pressed forward together, forming a powerful blood energy storm. Golden holy light submerged this place. Who dares to stir up trouble here, disregarding the rules of this distinguished meeting? A loud shout sounded from the jade pool. There were great figures who appeared. Many figures rushed over. A mountain lord from the Blood Phoenix 17 mountains, a cave master from the Fire Chelan 13 caves, and others all came. They were all imperial family representatives. When they saw that it was the monkey who shouted murderous words, all of their hearts jumped. This was not someone who was easy to deal with. The monkey's current identity was too sensitive. If he really did stir up trouble, everyone would feel restraining fear. I haven't stepped foot into the jade pool yet, so it can't be considered violating the great meeting's rules. Today, I wish to kill the undying heavenly emperor's son. The monkey held a large black club in his hands. Killing intent surged, his domineeringness boundless. Chapter 809. The monkey surged with killing intent, and was extremely domineering. The heavy black metal club in his hand pointed forward, as if it was going to collapse mountains and rivers within 100,000 li. A creature with the heads of 9 beautiful women, but the body of a phoenix spoke. The meeting of the myriad races is about to begin. Now all killing is forbidden. Peace is the most important. However, the monkey's large club had already smashed out, hacking forward murderously, causing sand and stones to fly everywhere. Even the short mountain at the side was uprooted, about to collapse. He had already taken action to kill the heavenly prince. He was incomparably domineering and didn't listen to advice at all. The lords of the Blood Phoenix 17 mountains, and the Fire Chelan 13 caves were all extraordinary existences. Great clans that had produced ancient emperors possessed incomparably lofty statuses. The other clans all had to be respectful when they saw them. Who dared to not give them face? However, one was the heavenly prince, and the other was the sacred prince. Their origins were astonishing, making things difficult for them. At this moment, both sides didn't listen to advice. The battle didn't stop here, and was about to carry out a life and death battle. This made their hearts jump. If an ordinary person didn't listen to advice, they would have long killed them. Dang! String after string of sparks shot out like shooting stars piercing through the sky, drawing out dazzling radiance outside the jade pool. Several old servants went up together, strenuously blocking this shocking attack. They all staggered back with large steps, blood flowing out from the corners of their mouths. The monkey was incomparably valiant. The great club's power was heavy and ferocious, its astral energy surging. Several short mountains at the side were uprooted from the staff's winds, rumbling and collapsing. The scene was terrifying. The hearts of many great clans' representatives were greatly shaken. This was the son of Emperor fighting. He had just severed his Tao, yet he already possessed such power. Who in the younger generation could contend against him? Princes, please calm your anger. No matter what kind of grudges you have, you can discuss them in detail in the jade pool. There is no need to make a big fuss here. An ancient creature that was rather old spoke. Now, even the imperial clans of the divine Silkworm Ridge and Primordial Lake couldn't interfere in the dispute between the two princes. It was because none of them were simple characters. There was no need to mention the heavenly prince's identity. As the only descendant of a deity, all the races had to show him some respect. Moreover, many of the protectors of the 9 great dragon veins outside the ancient imperial mountain survived, and were not eliminated by Wuxia. Now there was an extremely impressive force behind him. As for the monkey, he wasn't someone to be trifled with either. This was especially so in recent times. Everyone was wary of him and didn't dare to offend him. Because of the Buddha's voice from the western desert, the victorious fighting Buddha of Mount Meru was still alive, and it was very likely that he was his uncle. This made the various imperial clans feel as if there was a boulder weighing down on their hearts. The younger brother of the Emperor of Fighting had avoided the era of his elder brother, and lived to this day. Perhaps he could prove his Tao in the future. This was a great deterrent. Previously, when they heard that the monkey had been schemed against by some of the ancient races, they didn't think much of it. But now things were different. Who would dare to play any tricks? No one dared to make things difficult for him anymore. If it was someone else who caused trouble before the start of the Grand Assembly, they would have been obliterated long ago. However, these two people were each more tyrannical than the other. Even the various royal families did not dare to touch them. In the end, 2 great races that had sent out ancient emperors appeared, blocking between them. Only then did the war stop. Blood Phoenix Mountain and Fire Chelan Caves people stood out, stopping them, not letting them get close. This could be considered an explanation to the people behind the 2 princes, not allowing them to fight to the death. The monkey was extremely unyielding, not wanting to stop at all. He cursed the heavenly prince in front of everyone's faces. Previously, the heavenly prince had joined forces with some experts to chase after him. This matter couldn't be allowed to end here. Sacred Prince, what do you plan to do? An aged ancient creature asked. The monkey insisted on killing the heavenly prince, not willing to give in. The battle's sacred ape race was extremely domineering. After being chased for half a year, he had a stomach full of anger. This is indeed a serious problem. As the son of the Emperor of Fighting, he is being chased after by some servants. This is blasphemy towards the ancient emperors. The divine Silkworm Ridge bloodline that hadn't spoken all this time stood out and spoke like this. Their statuses were revered, and they played an important role in the tens of thousands of races. Not far out, the heavenly prince's expression immediately changed, but he didn't say anything. There were great races that stood on the monkey's side, and this wasn't a good sign. Indeed, without a proper explanation, this can't be justified. Another archaic king race individual nodded in agreement. Those that leaned towards the heavenly prince's side all felt that things weren't good. If things got bigger, could it be that the two princes really were going to fight to the death? Everything is our fault.